There's a lot of different trends in the industry. Obviously, ever since COVID happened, we've started to see a lot more decentralized clinical trial technology being used, whether it's a full decentralized trial or whether we have hybrid trials such as, you go to a hospital, a brick and mortar facility to get testing done, and you do some additional testing at home via home health devices. We're seeing a lot of hybrid trials happening right now. So we're starting to do a lot of those inspections now that those clinical trials that were done during COVID are now coming to fruition in applications that are before the agency right now.
So overall, the trends in the oncology market right now specifically are really focused on financing, but also to the reprioritization of pipelines. Really what we have been seeing is that, what we were seeing is during the COVID years, essentially there was a big rise in the amount of funding and the number of trials being run, and there was a very heavily competitive space. And now what we're seeing really within the past few years is really a reduction in the number of clinical trials due to lack of funding, but also to the limited funding and really the reprioritization of the large pharma pipelines. And so with that, we are now going to start seeing better funding to be available really within 2025, 2026. And a good example of that is the reduction of the interest rates from the Feds last week.
So in our session today, we were discussing how to bridge the gap between what we're calling healthcare deserts, where participants don't have any access or very little access to participate in a clinical trial, and how the use of decentralized clinical trial models like mobile visits and community research sites can really help to bridge those gaps between healthcare desert and clinical trial access.
So I've seen a lot of trends that have happened in the industry, specifically around randomized clinical trials with patient enrollment. Even the abundance of real-world evidence has gotten much bigger in the last few years. I think there was always an emphasis on randomized clinical trials, but we're starting to see more about real-world evidence and how that plays a part in the life cycle of the drug, how it creates new indications, and sometimes leads to more randomized clinical trials for those specific things to happen.
From where I sit working in the COA space, I'm starting to really see a lot of trends on integrating eCOA technology with other platforms. And again, that goes back to trying to optimize clinical workflows and remove redundancy for the site when they're having to use multiple technologies in a trial.
Yeah, some of the trends that have been recent is the use of AI. It's been a huge discussion point in the industry as well as in the conference here today, and something that's going to be evolving over the coming years, definitely.
First of all, things becoming fully digitized, like patient diaries, and just portals for patients to use to record aspects of their experience, I think is something. I think in general, recruitment, trying to make sure that a diverse range of participants are recruited.
So what we're seeing is a lot of discussions about AI, but not as many movements that we'd like to see. So one of the topics that I talked about with my discussion was how quickly we were able to implement all of the strategies when COVID hit and how telehealth hit. So we're trying to do the same thing with AI.
I think everyone wants to implement AI, but they're also very careful and they want to do it the right way with the regulatory and the safety measures. I feel like last year there was a lot of research on AI. This year it's more implementation on the research that happened last year. Next year is probably when people are going to see the returns from that. So this year a lot of conversation about the implementation of AI.
I think one of the biggest trends that we're noticing is the move to everything being electronic. Some site networks are still paper-based and a lot of them are moving towards going electronic, but also with that too, I think that comes to benefit because of accessibility. It's easier for CROs and sponsors, but then it's also easier too for sites. That's one of the things that we discussed during our talks today is how PCM was able to enroll participants in a different state than where the clinical trial site was. I think that's something that is really important that we do not talk enough about.